So with the holidays behind us and a new year ahead of us, I know that I don't normally post videos back to back, but in my YouTube subscription feed, I had seen a zillion and one little videos about what's going on with Apple and the tech industry as a whole. And I just wanted to chime into what I personally think might happen in 2019. First of all, I don't think Apple's not going anywhere, okay? I honestly don't think they're going anywhere. Some people have suggested this may be that what's going on might be a wake-up call for them to invest into new technologies, and I personally agree. It's not to say that anything they're doing is bad, okay? I love my iPhone XR, and I really love I love my Apple Watch. But if you think about it, the devices are they are expensive. Even $500 can be expensive to some people, okay? So to expect replacement every year akin to the previous years, I think is a bit, shall we say, optimistic. That said, again, there's always going to be people buying iPhones, okay? The iPhone can be thought of as the mothership, okay? The mothership to things like the Apple Watch and AirPods and other similar technologies, anything with HomeKit, the HomePod. You know, the iPhone can be thought of as the mothership to all of these technologies. And a lot of people are saying, oh, why don't why isn't there a major upgrade of the iPhone year over year? Or, every other year or whatever it is. Honestly, I don't think there's a need to do it. I mean, there is a glass ceiling. There is Moore's Law, basically saying that eventually we're going to reach a threshold. And I really do think that in regards to the iPhone, in regards to the Mac, that threshold may just be nearing. Now, is that going to say that the sales are going to drop off the face of the earth? No. Me personally, a lot of these investors, they look at the short-term projections. I'm not an investor. In fact, I personally hate money. I hate people who love money. Money's obviously, unfortunately, necessary to get through life. I wish it wasn't. But that's a whole other debate for a whole other time. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is people need to look at the long-term projections. I just mentioned, let's look ahead into 2019, okay? Well, okay, so I'm personally adapting to a phone without a headphone jack. Now, I do have ear pods that come in my iPhone's box. I personally haven't used them yet. And I normally haven't in the past because I always kept them as backups. That said, I'm wondering what I should do. Because I do have a pair of headphones that have Amazon's voice assistant built into them. But at the same time, I've got a reverb app that does the same thing. And I remember last when I wore them, especially with my glasses, they were a little uncomfortable after a while. So I'm thinking about doing something else. Now, I love the idea behind Apple's AirPods. Except, and this is going to be a bit personal. Very few people know this, but I have major wax in my ears, which is to say that if I wear any kind of earbuds, they usually get pretty dirty in about 5 minutes. I just don't want the AirPods to become slippery because of that. I just don't want to drop them. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. You have to understand, I've never had AirPods before, okay? So I don't know what to expect. So I'm looking at AirPods, I'm looking at Beats. I would prefer just standard headphones as opposed to earphones. I honestly feel like I get better sound out of headphones. But what Beats is offering that has Apple's wireless pairing technology is, frankly, about as much as an Apple Watch. I mean, $350 is expensive. So I'm not sure where that's going. And I'm also thinking about the new iPad Pro, specifically the 11-inch 64 gigabyte model with Wi-Fi only. And the reason for that is because I'm thinking about the fact that the iPad can charge the iPhone, and with the iPhone I can utilize a mobile hotspot. And that brings me into, so I'm thinking about those because I do have a birthday coming up. So I'm thinking about those, what I might get. So I don't know if I'm going to get AirPods, another type of headphone, or if I'm going to go ahead and get an iPad Pro. I should say that my current iPad Pro I've had now for the last 4 years. Okay? As of December of this year, I've had it for 4 years. And overall, it still works, but I remember last semester I had a couple of instances where my smart keyboard just failed. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm honestly not sure. Again, like I said, I'm looking at multiple angles. But again, that's an example of looking towards the future. Another example is the rise of LTE in computers. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8CX has me excited for a lot of reasons. I already mentioned this in a prior video. But the big thing is pushing the PC forward. I think that we have reached a glass ceiling effect when it comes to... Now, this is just me personally, okay? I think we've reached a glass ceiling effect. Moore's Law is starting to apply to the Intel chips that are currently powering the vast majority of computers, both PC and Mac. Now, on the Mac side, Apple's really pushing iOS. I don't think they're ever going to get rid of the Mac. There will always be a place for the Mac. But I think their dominant system is going to be iOS going forward. And they've got LTE versions of the iPad. So I think that covers that particular market, especially if iOS 13 can add in some really nice little features for the iPad that make it more akin to a quote-unquote traditional computer. We'll just have to see. But the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8CX with Windows, that gives you a lot of hardware choice, in terms of what you want. Now, I don't think that we're going to see, because nowadays you can go into Walmart and you get a little tiny Windows laptop for, say, $200-300, one of these super low-power netbook things. I don't think we're ever going to see an always connected on device for that particular market for at least maybe 5-6 years. It's going to take a long time, I think, for the price to come down to the point where you can stuff a Snapdragon into something like that. That said, it's very exciting to see where things are going. And rumor is that, Apple's going to have an iPad Mini 5. We got CES coming up next week, I think, actually, at the time of this recording. And I'm very excited to see what happens there. We've got things like the smart home, things like... I'm personally interested to see what they do, because last year they had this 3D printer that could print food. I'm not kidding. So we'll just have to see what happens. Me personally, I'm very excited for 2019. I really don't think Apple's going anywhere. I just consider this to be, if you're thinking about it like a car, you're obviously not going to abandon your car just because it's got a problem, because fixing your car is a lot cheaper than buying a new one. Of course, it depends on the car, etc., etc. But my analogy, here's where I'm going with this, okay? Basically, all I'm saying is that Apple's at a bump in the road. I don't think they're going anywhere. They're obviously going to need to get into some new product categories, which I would like for them to. Rumor is that they might have some AR glasses coming up, and because they're known in the disability community for their real push for accessibility, it would be interesting to see if they could get a pair of AR glasses that are actually usable by people with vision loss. So there's a lot to look forward to. Further expansion, I think, in the Qualcomm Snapdragon community for the PCs. For the Macs, Apple, I think, eventually is going to transition to their own chips, like I said before, but that's not going to happen for a few years, so I'm not going to touch on it. As I said, I do think iOS is what's going to be the push going forward. And one of the reasons I'm considering an iPad is I did a comparison just the other day. All of the assistive technologies, everything that I do on the iPad, really the only thing that the iPad cannot handle is my statistics software. But then again, no mobile device can handle the statistics software that I use at my university. That's going to have to be used by the Macintosh. And my Mac is still going. I honestly think I'll end up keeping it, for several years to come. But I do think for a portable solution, I'm really up in the air right now. I want to see what CES brings out. I'm a little concerned, though, that if I go with a PC, that I'm going to end up rekindling the headaches of Windows. I'm very used to a maintenance-free environment utilizing iOS and the Macintosh. Now, I'm not saying that the Mac is maintenance-free, but in my experience, compared to Windows, it's a lot less of a headache. And with iOS, there's practically no headache at all. So those are my thoughts on the future. Basically, my view is that Apple, I think, they're going to push forward. They are going to push forward, but we're going to see innovations from everybody else as well, and it breeds competition. So it's going to be an exciting year. I really do think it's going to be an exciting year from all involved. But what do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.